So in our previous demo, we created this multilingual app, and we added a few languages where we can select the language and the label text and the text of the button changes based on our selection from the combo box. So this is all well and good, but when we restart it, it goes back to default. So there is no way for us to save the changes at this moment because all our data is static and it's stored here in our languages class. Now in this demo, what I want to do is create a configuration file and save the data in the file so it can persist, and next time we run the application, actually our changes are still in effect. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to go ahead add an XML file to our project. If you're new to XML, please see my link to XML. This is going to be the link to XML. I have several videos. You can go ahead and watch them if you don't know link to XML, and then take it from there. All right, so we're going to right click on our project, add new item, scroll all the way to the bottom. We'll select the third one from bottom, which is an XML file. I'm going to call this my config file, or just my config should do it, my config, and click add. It should automatically add the XML extension right here. It automatically adds the XML extension for us. So that's done. Now we are going to take our language class, lang class here as basis, and I'll create our languages in XML. So the first node I'm going to add is going to be root. Inside root, I'm going to add a languages child node, and inside our languages, I'm going to add 3 languages. So language, that's 1. Let me copy and paste this. Okay. All right, so let's expand these tags. Okay. Let's take a look at our class. We have a label text, button text, flag, and language name. Basically, I'm going to match these. I'm going to copy these, go back to XML file, and inside the first language, I'm going to create this tag here, label text, and the next one is going to be button text. So on and so forth. Flag is next. And language name, lang name for short, is the last one. Again, one more time, I'm going to copy and paste this in each language tag. So we'll have 3 languages here. Next, I'm going to come down here, go into our static class. I'm going to copy these labels, these values here for label text and button click. Copy. This is label text. Copy right here. Then the button text. Flag is the file name. And language name is this guy here. I'm going to pause here and do the rest, copy the rest so you don't have to watch it. And I'll come back when it's all done. Alright, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so I have copied all the values from our static class here, or static method, and brought it over to the file. There is one more thing I like to add, and that's going to be the ID to each language. I shouldn't say one more thing, there is another thing. So ID for language, first language is going to be 1. Second language it's going to be an attribute. And the last one is going to be 3. And one more thing I want to add. I want to add an attribute here called active language ID equals, let's set it to 1 for now. Okay. Alright, so now that we have our XML file in place, we want a few things to happen. First of all, we want to read the language information from our XML file. Number 2, when we set the active language, we want that information to be saved in the active language ID. And next time, and as third one actually, as third point, we want to read this ID to find out which language is the current one or the active one, so that that's displayed on our application. All right, so let's go back to our languages class, and we need to create a few methods. I'm going to collapse this one here and start creating our first one. So the first one is going to be used as to read the XML file. So again, if you haven't seen my link to XML videos, it may be a good idea to take a look and then continue from here. All right, so let's call this public static list of languages, which we call lang. We'll say get, we'll call this get languages from XML. Okay. Before we go too far ahead, I'd like to create a constant string variable, and let's call this file name. So open, close our double quotes, and let's find our XML file here in our solution, our project, and let's get the properties to copy the file path. Okay, so I'm going to copy this file path with Control C and paste between our double quotes. Okay, and then to get rid of these errors, we need that @ symbol, which tells the compiler to treat this line as a string. Okay. All right, let's go back inside our method and let's create an instance of xDocument. So var xdoc, let's call xDocument, and then load method, and pass in our file name, the variable we just created. Okay, that's going to load us the file. All right. Next, now let's create another variable. Let's call this language list, lang list for short. We're going to grab our xDocument variable and then get the root and then get the descendants. The first descendant we want to get is this guy here, the languages. Let me copy and paste that. Okay, dot. Then we want to get to the second descendants, the next one, the child of the language. This guy here, we want to get to that descendant. So I'm going to copy that and open another descendant here and paste that in there too. And then dot, we're going to use select. Inside here, we're going to pass in our lambda expression, which says get the language, and then once you get that language from XML file, we want to create an instance of the language class and map it. So I'm going to open close my parens and curly braces. And inside here, we're going to map our class to our nodes, child nodes here. Okay, so the first one is label text. So label text equals x dot, x comes from here. This x represent one of these language child nodes. So we need x dot element called label text. Since we use the same names, we're just going to type in double quotes label text dot value, comma. Next one is button text equals x dot element parens double quotes button text dot value. We can copy and paste these if you want to, then make a couple changes. So I'm going to change this to flag and change this to flag and copy one more time for the language name, change this to language name and change this to language name. Okay, so this is going to map our XML to our class, and coming out of that, we want to convert this to a list so we can return it. Now we can say return language list. Okay, so if I go up here and change this to from which is using this one here, the first one we had here, we're going to change that to this new method we created. So let's call that method instead get languages from XML. Okay, let me save this, build, and run once. Let's see to make sure our method works. So if we get our list here, that means it's working, because currently we are reading the information from the XML, not from our previous method. Basically, this one is basically, it's not being used at this time. Okay, so now we are reading our language information from our XML file. The next thing I like to do is read the current. Let's change this back to 1. Actually, set the current language or active language. Let's set that first before we read it. So let's create another method, public. This is going to be void. Let's call this set active language. Okay. Right. So we're going to need our X document again. Copy and paste that. Next, we want to grab the attribute of child nodes language is called active lang ID. Let me copy that so we don't do any typos. So I'm going to say xdoc dot root dot descendants languages, it's plural. So let me copy that too, just in case, from here. Paste. Okay. Then we switch attributes. No, first or default. So since we have only one languages node, we don't have to pass in anything inside parens. And from there, I'm going to grab the attribute, and we'll pass in our attribute name. Let's copy it again. Copy and paste in here. And we want to change the value. All right, let me stop here. Before we go any further, I'm going to need a property, a full property. Actually comment this out for now so we don't get that nasty error. So prop full, it's going to be a full property. It's going to be type int. Let's call this selected index. Let's make it a little different than the original. Call it selected index. Hit enter. So this property is going to tie into our combo box here to the selected index property. So they're going to be bound. And then when this changes, we want to call this method here inside the setter. Okay, let's first tie in our property, I guess. Doesn't matter really. Let me call this method from here, set active language and comma. We're calling the method is going to come here, and then we want to set this value to the selected index to string. Okay, so that's going to set the active language in our XML to the value that's going to come here through. Let's go ahead and bind that to combo box. Let's say selected index equals binding source static resource language, and between these two braces let's need a comma and then bring that down, and we'll set the path to selected index right here. So this guy that we just added up in here, that's our target. So this means when we run this application and we change the selected language, it's going to come here and run this method and then set the value of this attribute in our XML file. Let's build this and test it out. Something here. Okay, let's build this. Okay. So now let's run this. Open up our XML files as well. Let's change this to Japanese. Okay, let me close this. So this ID should change, but it didn't. And I think I know why. That's because we didn't call the save method to save the XML file. So xdoc.save file name. Okay, so let's run this one more time. Let's open our XML file. Okay. And let's change the selection. Didn't change it, but I think as soon as we close this application, it'll change. Now notice we selected third language and we got the value of 2 here. That's because the index is 0 based and we numbered our languages based off of 1. If we want to match the numbers, we can add additional value of 1 at the end of this guy here. So selected index plus 1, but I don't see a huge difference. Let's leave it as it is for now. So if I run this again, it should have saved the language information and give us the correct language. And it didn't. Let's try this. Oh, okay, because the reason it didn't, we didn't create our method to read the value, and right now since it's tied to this one and we don't have any value, it's by default it's getting 0. That's why it's giving us the English, versus it was nothing in there before. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that last method for reading that current or active language, and let's call this public void. Let's say get the active language from XML. Okay, and this shouldn't be too hard. We need this guy here again, and we're going to say, now we need this guy, and also it's going to be the same line of code. We're going to copy and paste it here, and this time we're going to set this variable here, this property, private property. We're going to set that to equal this line of code. So selected index equals this guy, and we got an error because we need to parse it. Int.parse parens around this, and we don't need to save because we're reading the value. So that's good. I think we should be all right now. Reading it and setting that. So actually, so if this is correct, when we come here and build this, we should see these values change to ID 02, which is this guy, Japanese. Yep. So let's build this. Let's see if we made any mistakes or we're all good. Nothing changed. Okay, let's run this. Alright, so we probably made a mistake. Let's put a breakpoint here. Let's see what we're getting here. It didn't hit. Alright. Of course, we're not calling the method. Alright, so we're going to actually change this return type to int. So, and then say return. You can say that, I guess. So I'm going to create a separate variable. Int ID, and then return the ID. Okay. We have to remove the void once we have that. Okay. Alright, so we have the method. Now I want to assign this method over up here to this private variable. Okay, and we're getting the error because this method is not static. So let's convert this to a static method to get rid of that error, and that should take care of it. So right now our active language is Chinese, and when we run this we should get Chinese. And I think we hit the breakpoint down below here. Let me clear that breakpoint. I think we don't need that breakpoint anymore. So continue. We've got Chinese. Let's switch back to English and close this. We should see our value change to 0, which represent first language. Okay, let's try one more test. And let's switch back to Japanese and close this. And it's changing the value. If I run this again, we should have Japanese persisted in our application as our active language. Alright, beautiful. Now, since we have this XML, we can externally edit this. If we want to, we can add a new language, like so. Let's copy and paste this, and let's add our German. So this is going to be German. The name is going to be, let me copy that information from the previous demo I had. I should have that information somewhere here. Our German, so Deutsche is the name, and German PNG is our flag, and this should be label text. Let's copy that inside our label text here, and let's get the button text as well. So now let's change the ID to 4. Right now we should have a fourth language in our list. Let's run this. And there we have it. So we have 4 languages in our application in no time. Okay, let's use our new language and close this out. Make sure the value changes here. And it's 3 now. 3 means the fourth one in our list. And if we run this application one more time, we should have German still be in the active language. Alright, beautiful. So now I want to add one more thing to our application, and that's going to be color. So color, let's open another child node here inside our root. Let's say back colors. Right. I'm just going to do background, but you get the idea. You can do text color or any other colors you want to use. And the first one, I'm going to say background. Well, it's going to be only one. Background color. Background is fine. And the color, it's going to be, I'm going to use, let's go with still blue. Let's try this. Okay, now we need to add one more method here, back in our CS class that's going to read our color, and let's call this public static string get current or get background color. From XML. Okay, let's bring this guy here. And then we're going to say return xdoc dot root dot descendant node set. So our descendant node is going to be this guy. Well, colors first. Colors. Since we only have one child, so we want to say first or default. Dot value. Okay, I think that should get us the background color. We need another property here. So prop, I'm going to use auto property for this guy. String. Let's call this background color. Color. And I'm going to set this to this method here, get background color from XML. So now that we have this property, now we can bind to our form grid. I'm going to use the grid. So actually, let me build this first so we can see the property. Build successful. Let's get the background. And let's set this to bindings, the source, static resource, language. And we're still using the same class, but for now, since this is a simple application, I'm not going to worry about separating it. Path, it's going to be background color. And there you go. Excellent. Run this. And we have our background changed to still blue. If we want to, we can go get some different colors from web other than what's built in. Let's bring up a color picker here, and let's go with something, I guess, something light. Let's copy this color, see. Or actually, this one here. Same, I think, right? Let's copy this guy. And let's paste in here instead of still blue. We need that hash sign, I believe. And let's run this again. And our color changed to different color now. Okay, so we have our configuration file working as we want it. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.